Hello, old school comic book reviews. Today we're going to look at Dazzler #1 from 1981. Okay, Dazzler's a pretty kind of an interesting character. The character's been around some 30 odd years. Originally conceived as this kind of disco singer type person. You know, they've changed things about the character and so on and so forth and how she's been portrayed and blah 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 blah. But now it's kind of interesting to me. It seems like there's this kind of renewed interest in this kind of like old school retro version of the character, with the face paint and the white disco suit and everything like that. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go back and look at it a little bit. Just to jump back a little bit. The way I understand the character came about is actually at one point Marvel Comics had some sort of deal going with Casablanca Records, and I believe the original idea was they were going to have some lady actually be a singer. You know, there would be a real, actual, physical person singing on the records, and they were going to put out records and sell merchandise, and maybe there were going to be films and things like that. And and the comic books would tie into all of this. It would be part of this whole sort of multimedia type thing going on, and I guess for whatever reasons it fell through on the entertainment side, and Marvel decided to go ahead and put out their comic book anyway. I want to say that I read somewhere or I saw some interview or something like that where John Romita Jr. read him saying something to the effect of he conceived of the character as more of a Grace Jones looking type person. But the other editors or whatever said no, 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 no. But I think it would have been interesting to see, what might have happened had they had gone, in that direction. Another reason Dazzler #1 is interesting, just on a comic book industry type of way. The very first issue was distributed exclusively through comic book stores, and that's interesting just because back in those days, comics were still pretty much distributed through other, mainstream sources. I mean, you would go and get your comics at the newsstand or at the 7-Eleven or, at the drugstore and places like that. The whole idea of getting the new comics at the comic book store hadn't, quite taken over yet. And I think they were able to, create a little bit of buzz or a little bit of talk, just because for this particular comic, you had to go to the comic book store to get it. You couldn't just go to, the local Rexall or whatever and pick them up. Okay, so anyway, it's pretty much a typical comic book from that time, kind of average. It's nothing spectacular or anything like that. It's Dazzler #1, March 1981. There's a blurb here that says, conceived by Alice Donenfeld, John Romita Jr., and Jim Shooter, with some help from Stan Lee, Al Milgrom, Roger Stern, and Tom DeFalco. And it says, writer Tom DeFalco, penciler John Romita Jr., and inker Alfredo Alcala. I think that's how you say his name. If I said it wrong, I apologize. Oh, one interesting thing here. For a comic book that features a disco singer, there is no disco music actually mentioned. There's a reference to Pink Floyd in here, and there's a reference to Billy Joel, but there's no reference to Donna Summers or anything like that, or dance music in general, aside from the fact that there is an actual discotheque in there. Okay, so anyway, the story opens where Allison is, she's running through the alleys or whatever, and she's being chased by some muggers. Okay, so she gets to the end of the alley, she puts on her roller skates, and then she turns on her transistor radio. Basically, Dazzler's superpower is she's a superpower mutant, and her power is she's able to convert sound waves into light. So basically, normally she would use it as part of her act. People just think it's strobe effects or things like that, but it's actually her doing it. And then, she would get in these situations where she would use her powers to defend herself or whatever. Like I said, blinding people or confusing them or whatever. So anyway, she's in the alley with her roller skates on, fighting off the muggers, and Spider-Man shows up to help her out. She makes it home. She starts talking about how she doesn't have any money or anything like that, and tough times in the big city. But looking at her apartment, it's pretty spacious. It's pretty spacious for somebody who doesn't have any money. But anyway, she's lonely, so she calls the X-Men, who she's friends with. Um, the X-Men make a 3-page cameo or whatever. They make a little small talk. Then we kind of see a flashback where Allison talks about, or is remembering, I should say, her life. Basically, she was raised by this really strict father who wanted her to go to law school, but she just wanted to sing and dance or whatever. And we get to a scene where she's at the high school dance or whatever. And that's where her powers first kick in, and she's able to create cool lighting effects and blah, blah, blah. And then just then, a street gang crashes the dance. And the dialogue is all, "Stop! You're not students. You can't come barging in here." And the head thug is like, "Shut up, old man. The blazing lords go where they choose. You'll pay for not inviting us in." And they start smashing things up. And like I said, Allison uses her mutant powers to, like, blind everybody and knock everybody out. And then she says, "Oh no, I better keep my powers under wraps. Da 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 da. I can't let anybody know about this." And then we get to the point where she graduates magna cum laude, and her dad wants her to go to law school. And she's like, "No, Daddy. For too many years I've been split between law and music. Your dream and my own. I must be true to myself." And then Dad is like, "Stop. I've heard enough. Go if you must, but don't expect my blessing or forgiveness." And then we're back in the present. Meanwhile, the Enchantress, who is a supervillain from Asgard, determines that there is going to be a shift in the cosmic axis. And I guess what's going on, what does it say? "There shall occur a rift in the very fabric of reality, an opening into dimensions dark and dread." So I guess she figures she has to be there when the cosmic axis shifts so she can take over or something like that. And she basically determines that the point of this portal being opened or whatever is going to be right where the new disco in town is opening. Okay, so the next scene is we go to Avengers Mansion, and Hank McCoy the Beast is reading the paper, and this is back when the Beast was in the Avengers. And he basically sees that there's a audition for a new singer at the disco, and he goes to Allison's house and lets her know. What's interesting about this is the dialogue points out that the Beast and Allison have never met and don't know each other. So, how does he know where she lives, and how does he know that, she needs a job or whatever? This isn't questioned, but it's like, what is he, stalking her? I don't know, just a little creepy, that's all. Oh, another thing I think is interesting here. I'll just read it. It's at the bottom of the page. The caption goes, "Daring, intoxicating, and exhilarating, the club is quite arrogantly called Numero Uno. In a highly competitive field, it prospers handsomely, but at times like these, Stevie Wildfire, born Guido Gaudioso, wishes he'd opened a hot dog stand instead." My thing is this, maybe I'm just a little overly sensitive, but, Guido Gaudioso? Guido Gaudioso. I don't know. I don't know if that would fly these days. Okay, so anyway, basically, Stevie is having auditions for his new disco, and the Enchantress shows up and begins to sing, and he's really taken with her until Allison shows up. She begins to sing, and she gets the job. The Enchantress is pissed, and basically the issue ends with her vowing revenge on everyone. My question is, okay, I get the Enchantress wants to be there for the cosmic axis to shift, but why does she think she has to get a job at the disco? I don't get that, you're an evil supervillain, you know what I mean? Okay, let's say it's part of some long-range plan for her to eventually take over. The dialogue points out that she's used her mystical abilities to knock out all the other competition. Why didn't she do that for Allison? Or why does she have to actually audition? Why did she just use her powers to say, "Hey, Stevie, hire me"? I don't get that. But hey, whatever. comic book logic, right? That's basically it. It's pretty typical of its time. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's not particularly avant-garde, not particularly moving or anything like that. Just a basic comic book from the times. The art is okay. Doesn't not terrible. It's professional. That's about it. There's lots of ads in here. These are pretty old school ads. Classified ads for things like X-ray specs and exploding pepper and trick handcuffs and stuff like that. There's one pretty funny ad for Hostess fruit pies. It's Daredevil versus Johnny Punk. And Johnny Punk is going to blow out everybody's eardrums at the concert, and Daredevil's able to stop him by throwing fruit pies at him. Yeah. Okay. And what else do we have in here? More ads, buy old comics, stuff for toys. And the back page or the back cover is an ad for 132 Roman soldiers for $2.98. Okay, and that's pretty much it. For fun, I'm going to put down a link to a Kylie Minogue video that somebody made where they actually kind of photoshopped everything and made Kylie look like Dazzler. So once again, thanks for listening. Leave any comments and so on and so forth. You guys take it easy. Thank you.